Welcome to Focus on Why, the podcast where reflection sparks action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and together we'll explore compelling stories, profound insights, and transformative experiences from inspiring guests worldwide. Feeling lost or unfulfilled? Searching for clarity, purpose, or meaning in your work and life? This podcast invites you on a journey of self-discovery to align your work with your values, shape your future with intention, and create a purposeful way of life. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we dive in, let me share how I can transform your journey as a purpose coach. I specialize in helping you get crystal clear on your why, aligning your passion with your purpose, and crafting a plan to create the life you truly desire. Book a free 30-minute coaching call today. The link is in the show notes. Let's start building your purposeful future together. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Sarah Stones. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Amy. I'm good, thank you very much. Really excited to be here with you.
Well, I am too. And let's just dive straight in, shall we? What is it you're focusing on at the moment, Sarah?
It is really pushing out the message to people that we need to focus not only on why, but also on our motivation, because it is so integral to everything that we do.
And how do you separate out the why and the motivation and the purpose? How do you see those as different
Great
elements?
question. So, Daniel Pink, in his book Drive on Motivation, says that there's three things that motivate us, and one is the purpose, and the other one is autonomy and mastery, by which he means learning. In all my research and work with what I've realised is over 1,000 people now, obviously why is always a really big motivator. But I think there's always things as well to support that why. My why is making a difference for other people, and my other things that really give me energy is learning about how to do that and doing that creatively and being curious.
And has it always been the same for you, Sarah?
Mm. I've always wanted to make a difference, so I I slipped into a HR career by accident, really, because I went to university to do a degree in business studies, thinking that I would do marketing. And it's going back a few years. I'd grown up on a farm. I'd never even heard of HR, or as it was back then, personnel. And so when we had a talk in the second year at uni about our options, someone started talking about this personnel thing, and it was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I think looking back, I'd always been the one in school or in college that looked out for those people that needed that extra support. So fell into HR and did that for about 20 years, but was always really I love the people side of it. But when it came to all the policies and procedures and the bits that in my mind were the less interesting things, then it would be like, oh, have I really got to do this? Where I was speaking to someone this morning actually who said, oh, the policies and the procedures were the bits that really, and she really enjoyed and that really motivated her.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because when you were talking about HR and personnel, all I could think of was the paperwork side of things, and it sort of sent shivers down my back. But the people side, I'm with you. I absolutely love that. Now, you said you slipped into it or you fell into it, but what kept you for 20 years?
I think it was the fact that I didn't know what else I would do. And looking back, I'd always loved coaching, which is what I do now alongside the training and professional speaking. But it was always the coaching that drew me back. Um, when I think about the people that stick in my mind and the things that I've done that stick in my mind, it's always around that sparking, sparking belief in others that actually they can do things that they've sometimes never believed that they're able to do.
And that's interesting because you started out by talking about motivation and you're pushing out the message of motivation and why it's of relevance to people. And yet, that sparking belief in others is almost like an external motivator as opposed to an internal motivator here.
Yeah, that's a really great insight. And it's really making me think about that. And I think sometimes we do need that. It's a bit like having a match, isn't it? You can't, you need something to strike it against, otherwise, it's just a match. And I think our role is sometimes providing that um, external, well, whatever it is, providing that something to spark that match off.
It's a great metaphor. And what I love about that is obviously the spark is there as well. And then it's what is burning bright as a result. And
Yeah,
this is what happens with motivation that intrinsic motivation, which is so key because if you don't have that, then it's very hard to drive forward without something that is of interest to you. So this motivation and you referenced Daniel Pink having purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And you spoke about the mastery for you having that curiosity and the creativity. What about the autonomy, Sarah?
so autonomy is something that I think keeps me in self-employment because I love being able to lead my work in the way that I want to do it. But I think for me, autonomy isn't as strong a driver as that making a difference and that learning and sharing the expertise. I can do that. Um, that is far more important to me.
And what I've noticed, having interviewed so many people now, is that the focus for people tends to be something that they've had a lack of or a void at some point. Has there for you been a time in your life where you lacked motivation?
Definitely. Definitely. It was always so I'd always start a new job in HR really motivated, really engaged. And it's a standing joke even now, 20 years later, with some ex work colleagues, that I went in and I'd be, why do we do it this way? What haven't we tried changing this? And I was an absolute nightmare for the first few months. And I think I was like that in all of my roles. And then looking back, it was always after about 2 years that I'd be, am I in the right job? Am I in, or am I in completely wrong career? And it was without fail, it happened after about two, 2.5 years. And looking back, I now know that it was because I wasn't in an environment where I could do all of that problem solving and learning and making a difference, because in my mind I'd gone in and I'd shaken everything up and everything was working much better. And then it would be like, "Oh, what am I doing?"
So, knowing that this sort of innovative and problem solving skill set is something that's key for you, and then when it's plain sailing and it's working, then it's like, well, now what?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you, do you approach every element of your life like that, Sarah?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably, yeah. It's like, okay, so now what can I do? And it's funny, so running my own business, obviously, like anybody running a business, there are those jobs that are routine and repetitive, and that in my mind, although they're very different in other people's minds, so they're still boring bits. And so knowing that, my VA, I recruited deliberately somebody who enjoys all those routine, repetitive tasks, and she's brilliant at them. And so understanding what I need to motivate me and what she needs to motivate her, we can then make sure that everything gets done between us.
It's genius. And that mastery of the mundane, but being able to identify, that this is not working. This isn't actually inhibiting my brilliance because that's not my area where I shine. So when you do know where you shine and you are able to focus your time on that, what is it that you are looking to achieve in life, Sarah?
For me, it's about enabling others to shine. I think we're all born bright and shiny. And I think as we go through life, it's a bit like a reverse onion, isn't it? As we go through life, we get more and more layers of things that have happened and life in general. And so that bright, shiny inner gets covered up. And for me, it's about supporting other people to peel back those layers and get back to that bright, shining light.
Well, I've yet to find an onion that's got a bright, shining light within it, but I trust you that there is there. But I understand the metaphor. In terms of peeling back, what is it that when you are helping others, enabling others to shine, that makes for you the difference in your world, but in their world?
It's about, I think it's about enabling people to see their own brilliance because we are all brilliant. Everybody has such remarkable ability, um, but sometimes they haven't had that support and those people around them that have enabled them to see their own brilliance. I think I'm so very grateful to my parents who, despite my disability, enabled me to grow and become a very resilient, resourceful, independent person. And I'm very aware that I have been very fortunate to have been surrounded by people that have supported me through my life. Um, but we don't all have that. And enabling others to see what someone can see in them it's a real privilege.
It is a privilege, and brilliance, the word for me, it's actually one of my core values. I absolutely love it because of what it symbolizes and what it brings to the table in embracing my own brilliance and that in others by recognizing all the ways that brilliance is seen or felt or heard. And that can be in your strength, your intelligence, your genius, your talent, your curiosity, your learning, your hope, your resilience, whatever it is, whatever the brilliance is for you. For me, that word really encapsulates so much. And for you, that gratitude that comes with the brilliance, the gratitude to your parents and for all of their support and the enabling you to become the incredible woman that you are, to then essentially be able to pass on your brilliance. It's a beautiful gift that they've given, and for you to then understand how to receive and then how to forward that gift. So my question for you, Sarah, is we're all born bright and shiny. What happens for us to lose that brilliance?
It, I think it varies. It's not the same for everyone. The same thing could happen to you and me, and we both respond in very different ways. And I think it does depend on that amazing network or otherwise that we have as well. Um, so I don't think there's one answer to that. And it could just be that one thing happened to us out of the blue that on another day may not have even touch us, but on that particular day, on that particular moment, can really set us down a very different track.
And in the same way that we don't necessarily recognize our own brilliance, it's also possible for us to not recognize what our motivations are. And this is where you come in.
Yeah, and it's funny, I was thinking about this recently. I had breast cancer 10 years ago, and I must admit, when I was first diagnosed, it was like, oh, I mean, haven't I got enough to deal with cerebral palsy? But then I was laying in bed when I'd had my second dose of chemo. I got no hair. I was feeling a bit and I thought, okay, so I'm going to do a fundraiser. I'm going to have some photos done of me with no hair and use this as an opportunity to make sure that other people check and do regular checks and also raise money for the local cancer charity that was supporting me. And also, it was a really good way of telling all of my friends and colleagues that I hadn't already told. Now, looking back, that was all about me making a difference, which is my top motivator. And actually, that gave me so much energy planning and organising and responding. And it benefited so many other people as well. Um, that it was I think it's a really good example of actually, even at our lowest points, when we're doing something that motivates us, it gives us the energy to carry on.
So, with that inspirational message there, it was incredible how, in that moment of the why me and the self pity of like, I've got enough going on. And then you sort of realize, well, actually, hold on, I can change this and reframe it, and I can make it about what's important to me in the giving others the message. And in that motivational piece, you, as you say, you gave yourself energy. There is, on what I'm hearing here, the potential for people to be depleting themselves from energy daily by not going into that space.
Completely. We all have 9 different things that motivate us. But actually, if any of those 9 are really low motivators, they can be completely demotivating when we do them. And so, for example, if someone has that high need for autonomy and they're in a situation where they're being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it all of the time, then actually that is so demotivating for them. Whereas I was speaking about my VA earlier, actually she quite likes that. She enjoys that routine and that structure. So it's about understanding which motivators are important to us and which ones aren't. And we all have jobs to do or tasks to do that won't necessarily motivate us. But if we know what does motivate us, we can then plan our day or plan our week, making sure that we are filling our tank up. I always talk about motivation with another analogy of a car. You can have the flashiest car sitting on your driveway, but if it's got no fuel in it, you can't go anywhere. If you put the wrong fuel in it, then actually, I hope you've not done that, Amy. And no, I haven't done it. I'm very lucky, but we know the damage it causes if we put the wrong fuel in our car. We are just the same as cars. We need fuel and we need the right type of fuel. And if we've got the right type of fuel, we can just stick our foot down and go. But it's really interesting. I've never heard anybody, and I don't know whether you have, that said, oh, I've got far too much motivation. We don't talk about it unless we haven't got any. And it's a bit like positive psychology, I think. It was only 25 years ago that positive psychology was born. Before that, we'd only studied what goes wrong with our mental health. And I think we only ever think about motivation when we don't have any. We need to start thinking about motivation and what we need so that we can keep refilling our tanks.
It's a great point. And I'm hearing this understanding that motivation is at the core of what is our operating model, and that the combination of the motivations as well, because you mentioned that there were 9. So it's not just that there's one and that's it. There's going to be a combination in some ways, and more of one element, less of another element. And together they make this perfect recipe for you.
Mm. Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about what it is that's important to you about pushing this particular message out to ensure that people are understanding that their motivation is integral to everything that they're looking to achieve, to do, to be.
Have you ever met anybody with a high level of motivation and a low level of mental health and well-being?
It's a good point. I don't know necessarily if I've ever thought to look for the correlation.
I believe that if we are supporting someone's motivation, then by default we're supporting their mental health and well-being. And whether it is young people in schools, whether it's people engaged at work, we know from the Gallup poll last year, globally, there's only about 15% of employees who are actively engaged at work. We need to really increase engagement across, and whether you're a young person at school, whether you're in the workplace, whether you're looking at retirement, because retirement brings about huge changes and we need to be ready for those changes. And if we're looking at what motivates us, we can then make sure that whatever those changes bring about, we're still meeting those motivators. So for me, motivation is integral to every stage in our life, and making sure that everybody knows about those 9 different things that motivate us and is aware that those change as we go through life, and is also aware that our motivators can be quite different to our skills. So we can be really good at something, but if it doesn't motivate us, it won't give us energy. So in career choices, in everything, we need to pay more attention to our intrinsic motivation. And we know that intrinsic motivation is so much more important than extrinsic motivation as well.
I have to admit, Sarah, that I was being a little bit sarcastic with the noticing the correlation between it, because this is obviously the core of everything I do, and it is so key that what you're sharing here is understood. And yes, you're calling it your motivations. For me, I talk it about the purpose, which is again a part of this, and it's at what is understanding what it is that you're doing, why you're being who you are, what it is you're going to be achieving in life. And yes, Gallup's polls every year, they are hugely disappointing. And it was last year that John Clifton, who's the CEO of Gallup, said that the lack of engagement and lack of productivity is the difference between success and failure for humanity.
Yeah.
This is a problem that needs to be addressed. My understanding and reflection on how is that it is down to individual personal responsibility to make these changes. It's not something that you need to outsource to managers and leaders. You have to take the responsibility for understanding your motivations, your intrinsic motivations particularly. And as you said earlier about knowing what serves you well in terms of where your skill sets are, you talked about outsourcing those elements of your business that don't serve you well, that you're not able to do well, and therefore it will take you more time, which puts you in a space where you are not doing what you should be doing in terms of what you love and what you're fantastic at. So yes, it may not be as simple as outsourcing your particular roles at work, but at least start to have the conversations of, I'm better at this, you're better at that. Let's see how we can divide some of our daily activities to be more efficient and enjoy work.
Yeah. And if we're in a team, hey, let's do some job crafting around that.
So what is the focus for you imminently, and also the mission that you would like to see happen within your lifetime, Sarah?
My focus is being able to raise people's awareness of this learning around motivation that I don't think we've got it at the moment as a society. As I say, when you do searches on motivation, it's always I haven't got any, how can I get more? Um, we need to reverse that and be talking about motivation more openly and sharing what we need and asking others what they need and how can we support them. And I'm on a real mission to do that through professional speaking, through the work that I do delivering training within organisations and through my coaching business.
Well, it is very much needed because, as you say, the numbers of those who are actively disengaged and not engaged in the workplace are embarrassingly low. And so it is a case of helping people to understand that what's at the source, but then what they can do to change. So this raising awareness, you're here on the podcast, you're sharing this message. Let's see how far we can spread this and help people to understand, because yes, it's the core of my work also. And so, but as you say, we've not only not got it as a society, we've not got it as a global workplace. This is not an isolated UK based issue, it is a global problem. So yes, let's talk more openly and ask others what they need to get this resolved in lots of different ways. Your professional speaking is one way, you're coaching another, the training another in organizations. What is it you're hearing back after delivering some of those sessions?
It's the phrase that I hear so regularly is people feel validated. They understand why they feel the way that they do when they've been doing particular tasks or jobs. One of the examples is nationally within the UK, we have a very low um, motivator around having recognition. And so that often stops people, for want of a better word, shouting about what they do. And whether we're in business on our own or whether we're working within a team, we need to do a certain level of shouting about what we do to be recognised and to be able to make a difference or share our expertise or be more creative, um, or actually um, earn more money, for example. If you've got that low motivator around recognition, interviews may be even harder work than they are for people without that low motivator. Um, and it's about understanding the impact that that has on you, and then being able to work on that and recognize it. That I think the other thing that people say is it's it makes the invisible visible, uh, just through filling out a 10-minute questionnaire. People become far more aware of what's important to them.
So we could talk about this for ever, because it's both in our interest and passion to do so. What's the best way for people to reach out and carry on the conversation directly with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and that's Sarah Stones, and my business is called Plain Sailing Motivation, and my website is plainsailingmotivation.co.uk.
All those links are in the show notes. Thank you for sharing. Sarah, thank you for making this difference, for enabling others to shine and to help them find that inner shiny onion that there is to be found, because it really is one person at a time going to make a greater difference in terms of edging towards success for humanity, which is a goal that we all need to club together to work towards for sure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing just how important motivation is, and how to discover and uncover what yours is. It really is so key. Have you got some final words, please, for the listener?
Think if uh, listeners are wanting to look at what those 9 motivators are, just to say I would encourage you to do it, to look at them, and they are all on my website. And like you just said, Amy, I am passionate. So if anybody wants to find out more, then I'm always really happy to talk to people.
This episode's over, but let's keep the conversation going. How has this episode impacted you? Share your insights, takeaways, and reflections with actions on social media, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback creates powerful ripple effects, helping others to discover its value. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for links on how to work with me, where to buy my new book, Focus on Why, Create a Purposeful Way of Life, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and where to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.